I can't remember the last time I had this loaded of questions in an episode of my Q&A that I do every month. But yeah, we're going to be talking about, is DCC overrated? We're going to be talking about model trains for people with disabilities. We're going to be talking about a little bit of a community issue too. So should be an interesting episode. Hey everybody, my name's Jimmy. I'm drinking some Starbucks Pike Place right here, and this is Coffee and Trains.
This video is brought to you by Model Railroad Academy. Model Railroad Academy is your online resource for model railroad instructions, ideas, and information, with loads of tutorials and articles for model railroaders of every skill level. One of my favorite videos that I've watched recently is making your own homemade ballast, and it's just a really cool tutorial that shows you how to make custom ballast in case you're doing a prototype that doesn't have a commercially available ballast. Plus, you can find tutorials on everything from bench work to electronics to scenery, all sorts of things there. The first 1,000 people to sign up at the link in the description below will get a full year of premium membership to Model Railroad Academy for $1.49. Offer is valid for new members only.
If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you're drinking and be featured just like these guys right here, you can do that in the comments below, and who knows, you might see your name pop up on an episode of Coffee and Trains. And oh yeah, look, I got a new mug, guys. So I got a couple new mugs actually. So if you also want to be in next month's Q&A, I'll tell you how to do that at the end of this video. Cheers. Unwound Steak 17 asks, which in-scale locomotives would you recommend for super tight radii? He says he has a Kato NW2, but he's looking for a bit more variety in that area because he's heavily limited on space. So the ones that I've had the most success for with tighter radii are like F units, so F3s, F7s. Those are good ones. Also, if you're doing DC, you can look at some of the Kato Pocket Line, like the Kato Pocket Line steeple cab. That's one. But basically things that are about as short a wheelbase as like the F units, so think like the smaller Jeeps and things like that. Those are going to run okay, but that's going to be mainly the ones that are going to work the best. I did try once like a P42 on a 183 millimeter track, and it did not work. So the F units are about the longest you can run on those tighter radii, and it can get around that 183 millimeter radii that Kato has for some of their track. I didn't try it on the 150, but 183 it works. CostEven6925 asked that since my layout is in a garage, which it is, and I live in the South, not the super deep South, I'm in North Carolina, but I live where I get hot and humid summers, and I'm wondering if I've ever had any issues with humidity and heat, mostly with my bench work and track. So I have never had issues like that with my bench work and track. And I think one thing about that is I've used a lot of Kato Unitrack, and the stuff that I do that's not Kato Unitrack typically is actually inside. And what another thing is that I'm using these T-Track modules. So I think those handle the expansion and contraction that comes with heat and humidity and then going to cold and dry. I think those handle it really well. I do have a few phantom issues that'll pop up from time to time that I'm like, that wasn't there before. But overall, I think the modular setup and the track, the Kato Unitrack, is handling it really well. Also, these are folding tables, guys. So nothing fancy here. So the folding tables, they work really well. They're plastic, so they're not really affected by the heat and humidity in terms of what's in my garage. And I do have an air conditioner in here that I run sparingly because this wall it's got a brick on the outside, but it's still uninsulated. And but I'll run an air conditioner and try to get it to around 80 degrees when I'm shooting in here. I think this might be one of the more important questions I've answered on any Q&A that I've done. This comes from the Spicy Potat, and they say that their fiance wants to get into model railroading, but they have some disabilities. And their main two disabilities is they have cerebral palsy on their right hand, which limits dexterity and fine motor skills. And they are also heavily visually impaired. So seeing and handling small objects can be a challenge. So for instance, they say that he does enjoy Lego sets and building, but it can be a little bit of a struggle from time to time. And I've actually seen people that have commented on this as well, have said something very similar, is like, what US scale of model trains is best for him, and what other ways can make the hobby more accessible and accommodating for someone who wants to enjoy the hobby with disabilities in mind. So you asked about DC and DCC. So this is what I would say for people that want to do model railroading with disabilities. And it's a slightly different thing, but I would look at 3-rail O scale. 3-rail O scale, specifically with the cerebral palsy in the hand and the limited vision, you're talking about a good size, 1/48, but they're designed to run on really tight spaces. So you can build them in a similar space to HO scale. If you're doing a loop, obviously it's going to take up more space and things like that. But the really cool thing about 3-rail O scale, there's a couple cool things that really make this thing, is that one, it is very easy to handle, and there's different tiers. There's ones that you can be a little bit rougher with, and you don't have to be as crazy gentle with it. And Lionel has, I think Lion Chief is their more of their semi-scale, and then they have a couple like the Vision line and things like that. But 3-rail O scale is fairly easy to handle, fairly easy to get on the track, and the couplers are also pretty easy to work as well. It's also been around for a long time, and it is backwards compatible with a lot of stuff. Now, the remote controls that it use, they're not necessarily, but the cool thing about the remote is that you really don't have to worry about as much wiring. You can literally plug the DC power pack straight into the track, and then the Bluetooth controller will control the train as long as it is that. The older ones, you may need a power pack to run it. But in terms of that, so a Lionel starter set is a great place to go for that. Another cool thing about doing 3-rail O scale and Lionel is that the L scale, which is what we call Lego trains, they're right around the same scale as O scale and that semi-scale. So you could theoretically blend the love of Legos with the desire to do model trains. And there are model railroad sets that are Lego L scale that you can buy. Now, there's some that you have to buy the plans for and then buy the parts, and then there's also ones that you can buy directly from Lego. So you just got to kind of figure that out. I'm not too versed up on that. I have built a Lego train set and they're cool, but definitely the O scale range is what you're going to be looking at. That's going to give you good control, and it's not going to be as dependent on dexterity. When you get into HO scale, you really get some small parts on some of the engines, especially nowadays, and in scale, it messes with me sometimes, but O scale is going to be your best bet. Matthew Millermates asks, what does my staging area look like in the back, which is right over there on the other side of that backdrop? Well, it's actually a pretty simple staging area. It's got 2 tracks that run around basically the loop of like a 6-foot section of T-track, and then it has another section with some re-railers on it that allow me to load cars on and off for either direction. And there's also a double crossover there as well. I haven't scenicked yet. I'm thinking about scenicking it, but I'm not sure. So it really just depends on what I end up wanting to do with it. But yeah, that's what my area back there looks like. Chase Childress 2720 said he wanted to guess about the outlet here and says that it might have a large grain elevator towers to cover it. Nope. You'll see soon though. Well, not that soon. It's going to take a little while, but you'll see. Thomas L. Durbin says, what are my thoughts on plastic versus metal wheels? And am I ever going to go to all metal wheels? So I like metal wheels versus plastic wheels. They roll a lot better. They make things a lot easier. One good thing about plastic wheels, and this is a bit of a niche good thing, is that you can run them in front of an engine and they will clear dust off the track. And I will sometimes put 5 or 6 plastic wheeled cars in front of a locomotive and have it push and actually clear track off. I'll actually do that with a big boy sometimes because it's got enough contact spread out to where it is going to be able to like keep the pickups even when the track's a little bit dirty. But yeah, I overall prefer metal wheels because I can also do the current sensing for block detection and things like that. But honestly, I still have a bunch of plastic wheel sets in my collection too that I haven't changed out. Lord Revan 1991 asks about wanting to run multiple engines on a DC system as a double or triple header. And would it be better to have the faster engines as the road lead engines? And it would be, I'm not too crazy on it. I prefer dummy engines, honestly. But the big thing that I would say is that if I'm doing a triple head, I'd probably want the fastest engine in the middle. If I'm doing a double head, I would do fastest engine in the back. And the reason is because when that faster engine's in the front and it's pulling, it's going to stress your coupler, and eventually it's going to be just enough stress to either warp it out to where it doesn't couple, or it's going to break, especially if you're running it a lot and you're running it at speed. So yeah, having that in there is probably going to be your thing. Also, it can just be pretty difficult to do that with DC, considering that you can't speed match like you can in DCC. So yeah, I would put it either in the back for a double head or in the middle for a triple head. So, but yeah, don't run them in the front. That can break your couplers potentially. This right here, this question might spark a firestorm in the comments, and I don't know, because sometimes it's the things I expect and sometimes the things that I don't. Dylan May asks, is DCC overrated? It seems that all of the work that you do, and sometimes you get little or no return depending on the size of your layout. And thoughts on the MRC Tech 6 2.0 system for smaller DC and DCC layouts. So first of all, I have not used the Tech 6 2.0. I'm really just thinking about picking one up to try it because I think it is a good go-between basic DCC system, something like on the lines of like a Bachmann Easy Command. I think it's in that tier. Plus you got the remote control you can use, which is really, really nice. But back to the question, is DCC overrated? I'm gonna flat out just say no, and I know that there's a lot of DC guys out there. When I say this, I am not saying that DC is bad. I have a DC layout upstairs. I've had plenty of DC layouts in the past. The reason that I say that DCC is not overrated is because of what it has done to the quality of locomotives that we have now. If you look at some of the features and some of the things that we can do now with locomotives, it is mind-blowing. It would take someone from like the 80s and 70s and be like, whoa, you can do that? We can do all sorts of lighting features. We can make things realistic. We can do brake squeal. We can do realistic braking, and we can do just tons of stuff. We can rev them, the engines at different RPMs. We can do, like, it's just amazing what you can do with DCC. You can match engines to do real consisting. You can do all just tons and tons of stuff. It really just makes the hobby more of a miniature replica of real life. It allows for a ton of features. It's actually, if you're building a larger layout and you're doing DC, you'll need different like areas that you're connected to so that you can control stuff at different speeds. It's actually a little bit simpler in larger layouts to wire DCC than it is DC, and I think that's a big misconception. But yeah, I definitely don't think DCC is overrated, and I think it changed the hobby for the better, and it really ushered in this era, the second golden age we are in now, of hyper-realistic models, hyper-realistic operations, and things like that. It has allowed for all of these things. Just think of things like the proto throttle from Iowa Scaled Engineering. Like, that thing would not be possible with DC. Well, it would, but whew, it would not be as interesting and fun or easy to do without DCC. Scurbs7755 says that they have wild fluctuations in their garage. Temperatures from the mid 40s to below zero in days in the winter, and low 80s to up to close to 100 in the summer. And the fluctuations temps, are they dangerous to models with all the DCC and sound? As far as I know, they are not. Obviously, if you feel a concern or if you start to notice little hiccups and things like that, bring some models inside. But I've had it get over 100 degrees in here, and I have not had any issues, and it gets pretty humid in here too. So, but I've had zero issues whatsoever. R. Greer asks, what is the smoothest, least jerky way to make an automated crossing gates in N-scale? And he says he's considering switching to tortoise, and that's probably the route that I would go. I feel like a tortoise switch machine would make a really good crossing gate controller in N-scale, especially since you can adjust the length of the throw. It's really easy to do. So, and they move extremely smooth. They have those stepper motors in them. And I just think that those would work really, really well, because a stepper motor is always going to be smoother than a servo, unless you got a really good servo. But yeah, so I think a tortoise switch machine might be the way to go. If you want to go a little cheaper, you can just get you a stepper motor and figure out how to program that. But yeah, stepper motors, tortoise switch machines, that's the things that that's probably gonna do a lot better than a servo. Titus Bagley 1951 says that they just got a Kato Union Pacific 844, congratulations, and a Loke Sound Micro 5 DCC decoder in order to convert it. and they've never converted a locomotive to DCC, so he's very hesitant. Any tips and tricks on converting? So the big thing that I would do is have places to contain your parts. And then the next big thing I do is slow down and take your time. See if you can find any schematics so that you can look up the locomotive. The 844 has been around long enough so that you probably will be able to find some videos online of it doing that. So that's another thing that you can do. But really, it's just taking your time and having a place to collect your parts and doing it one step at a time. Also, a good magnifying glass might help you, like either one you wear or one that's on an arm. I have both. That's another thing that I would do, but just take your time with screws and everything. Kato is a bit better engineered for that kind of thing. But yeah, I would definitely just take your time and make sure you have a place to collect your parts. Lost Souls Railroad. That may not be a railroad that I'd want to ride. They ask, what got me into the hobby? And I've been in the hobby for as long as I can remember. Some of my earliest memories were building an in-scale layout with my dad in his shop. Some other things. I used to love watching trains. The preschool, one of my earliest memories was the preschool that I went to when I was 3 and 4. There was a track with Norfolk Southern that would go by, and for some reason we'd go up to the chain link fence and every train we would go by and we'd just kick the fence. Don't ask me why, we would just do it. But as it kept going, it never really went away. I built an in-scale layout when I was a kid. I built an O-scale layout when I was a kid. I built a garden railroad when I was a kid. I've always loved it. It's not that I got into it. I think I was born into it. And it's just something that I've latched on to. I think every guy loves trains to a degree, and this is just something that I've loved. I also love miniature work. It's something that got me into video production. Pensy6755 Productions says, how would I speed match 2 Broadway Limited Paragon 4 steam locomotives? Well, the good thing is about Paragon 4 and Broadway Limited's decoders is that they still operate on the basic DCC standard. So you can still go in and do the start, mid, high, for controlling, for doing speed matching. You also have the speed table on there. So you can do that in JMRI, or if you know how to do it with CVs, you can do that. I do recommend, if you're doing speed matching, doing it in JMRI is just about the easiest way to do it. So that's what I would do. But yeah, you can speed match 2 Broadway Limited Paragon 4 locomotives the exact same way that you match anything else. And I always recommend doing it on a set of double track, but you can do it on single track and get to the point where they stay almost exactly in the same position from start to finish. Chris Seamster6985 asks, what is a good entry solder tool and a good process for beginning soldering rail joints? They have very little experience. So I have an all-use soldering iron, and it is a very, very good soldering iron. It doesn't take a lot of experience, and it gives you enough little controls to be able to learn. I do recommend that. I do recommend a solder station versus just a pure soldering iron. But I'll link one of those in the description. Another thing that I want to try is there's solder paste, which I'm pretty sure that a lot of you circuitry guys have heard of, but I want to try that for this, where you just put the paste on there and hit it with a heat gun, and bam, you got solder or a soldered joint. So that's something I want to try and see how well it works. I don't know if it'll work too well because of the heat gun and plastic ties, but it's something that I want to try. All right, guys, it's time to have a little bit of a chat because Darkroom Zombie brought up something to me that frankly bothered me a little bit. Not him, but what the issue that he brought up. He says, why does your fan club go around to other hobbyist channels on their YouTube and disrupt communities with their negative feedback and then promote your channel in the comments? So I don't know why that would happen. I've never asked people to do that. I've never said go to this channel and do this. So guys, if you're doing that's not cool. That just I would stop. You know, we're all about including everyone we can. This is the world's greatest hobby. This is, you know, just because someone isn't doing something perfectly the way you think it is doesn't mean they're wrong. There's people that think that I'm wrong in the way that I do stuff. I'm not the best model railroader in the world. And trust me, I hear it on there. But if you're going around and directly writing negative comments and spamming and things like that, please stop. I'm serious. Please stop. And if you are seeing this now, please email me directly at the email in the description below, and we can figure out exactly what's going on. And maybe there's something else going on that's something we need to work together to figure out. But yeah, That's not cool, guys. Don't do that. If you would like your question answered in next month's Q&A, you can do that in the comments below. You might see your name pop up in a question next month. And hopefully the questions will be a little bit less loaded than they were this month. But who knows? I'll do my best to answer them. I do have to do like the cutoff of like right around the first week. It's really when I get so many questions, and then I cut off because I have to start producing the video. So get those questions in as fast as you can. And thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.